Talk about small businesses for a second. Now, on a technical level, I guess I'm a small business. I mean, I'm a freelancer, all things considered. Like that's legally what I am. It'll be a small business once I apply for an LLC. But regardless, for the time being, I do want to talk about small businesses. Why is that? Well, COVID. Quite frankly, COVID is the big reason why I want to talk about small businesses. So, why are small businesses important? Well, to be frank, they are the lifeblood of your community. They are the thing that allows your community to have any amount of flavor. And more importantly, small business owners, they're people who get to be their own bosses in most cases. At least they try to be. These are people who get to be entrepreneurs. These are people who get to start their own thing. You should be supporting small businesses because these are the people who work very hard to do what they do. The lifeblood of your community is not the local Walmart. It is not the local Target. It's not the local Starbucks. It's not any of that. It's the mom and pop owned coffee shop. It's the trading card shop over down the way. It's the mom and pop owned antique shop. And now I do have a horse in this race. I do want to let my biases be clear. There's a reason I pointed out antique shop. Because my mother actually owns an antique shop. And for the last month, the last 2 months really, but the last month, they've gotten no business. Nobody's been coming in the doors. Several days of going into work, not making a single sale. And why is that? Well, quite frankly, right now, with COVID being a thing, and with the thoughts of another lockdown coming in, people are doing the same thing they did the last time a lockdown was being talked about. They're hoarding. They're hoarding their toilet paper. They're hoarding their canned goods. They are not trying to buy, antiques. They're not going and doing these things. Now, in and of itself, that would not be a horrible thing, but let's talk about what is actually available for small businesses for help. Now, I know there is something that is helped for small businesses that have an established payroll system, but if you are a new business and you are still trying to earn your first bit of revenue, most small businesses don't earn a lot of revenue in their first year, sometimes even their first 5 years. When you do that, you might not actually get a payroll. And why does that matter? Well, if you don't have a payroll, there are certain payroll protections that have been rolled out with this that you are not eligible for. I know for a fact that at least this particular business has only been eligible for $2,000 in assistance. And that was back when this all started. It's been a year. Now I want you to imagine, just for a moment, imagine being an owner of a small business. This is your only income. And imagine trying to survive an entire year off of $2,000. This means not only do you have a house payment, not only do you have overhead for your business, not only are you trying to, in that overhead, supply an inventory for that business, not only are you trying to pay for your house bill, water bill, food bill, gas bill, all that stuff. Imagine trying to do all of that off of only $2,000. Now, under any other circumstance, this would not necessarily be as much of an issue, but of course, we are in the middle of COVID. Now, what does this matter? It was asked in the chat, have they tried eBay? Yes. Because this is I'm using this as an example, but this is a systemic issue. This is an issue that's happening on multiple levels at multiple small businesses, period, right now. People are going to big box stores. People are not going into small businesses. These places are dying. These brick and mortar businesses are dying. And there are people who are saying this is the natural way that things would go even without the pandemic. But should it be? Because when you go exclusively digital, you're basically beholden only to large bourgeois companies. That's all you got. Are those the only people that deserve our money? I would argue not. But why does this matter? Let's talk about community. Let's talk about what a community is beholden to do for its people. Now, this is not me saying that, oh, everybody should go shop at X antique shop and buy something because it's the community's responsibility to. That's not what I'm saying. When I say community responsibility, I mean, what should your government do? Because your government should, in an ideal world, be an extension of your community. It should be. It's not like it really operates that way, but it should. That government is an extension of the community. So it should do its best to serve the community's interests, to serve its needs. Now, we just went over a whole scenario with Rebecca Jones that showed that sometimes the government does not get used. A lot of times it does not get used to serve the community's interests. Sometimes it is used as a hammer, as a weapon, against the community to serve the people who are supposed to be servants to us. People who are in government are supposed to be servants to you, the people. If you don't believe that, I don't know what to help you. Go lick the boot of a fascist somewhere. I don't fucking care. Get out of this conversation if you don't think the government should be used to serve the people who pay its taxes. What do I think a government's responsibility should be towards its small businesses? Well, I think, especially in situations like this, especially in situations where there's a pandemic, there should be a stipend. There should be something that is there available for small businesses in every situation, not just businesses that have been firmly established, but businesses who were established decently before the pandemic and may not have things like proper payroll set up yet. There should be protections in place to make sure that these businesses can stay around. But small businesses across the United States are all dying. They're dying under the economic weight of COVID. Either because their clientele can't make it outside to go do the thing they need to do, shop at these businesses so they can actually survive. But in some cases, these businesses just die because they're not receiving proper help. They would be thriving under any other material condition except the material condition that we're existing in right now, the one with the fucking virus. What should a government do in this situation? I think there should be an amount that is set up based on not only the size of the business, but the size of the expenses of the business owner. And I think our taxes should go into making sure that these places can float for the amount of time that the pandemic is around. Basically just an extension of what should have been a functional stimulus bill, where people were able to get longer-term assistance with everything. Because the unfortunate reality of how America handled its stimulus bill, there are people who are not unemployed, who are simply employed but not going to work during the time of these lockdowns, and are not able to afford anything because they only got $1,200. I don't know why Growlithe is barking. Hold on. I need to figure out why she's doing that. Because she needs to stop. At least when I'm recording. But, anyway. Growlithe, come here. I'm trying to talk about things. I'm trying to talk about things, girl. Would you let me talk about things? Can you do that? Can you please let me do that? Please let me talk about things. Hi, good girl. Hi there. You giving us a small Growlithe break? Giving us a small Growlithe break while we talk about economic crises? Now, I think that our tax dollars, personally, should be going towards making sure that small businesses can survive. Because at the end of the day, small businesses already have enough to fight against with big box retailers who are able to offer more at lower prices. Generally speaking, anyway. I don't think they should have to fight with people in the community right now because they're not able to actually get what they need. Small businesses should be able to get a stipend to survive. Small businesses that I rely on personally, I rely on card shops. I rely on gaming stores. Places where I can socialize with people who have similar interests to me. That is a boon for my mental health. And unfortunately, there are shops that are having to shut down. Shops that have been established for years because they can't get anybody in. One of the main drivers for card shops to sell merchandise is, put it frankly, loitering. People loitering in the shop and being around for 8 hours, realizing, they might need to buy a snack. They might as well buy some sleeves. They might as well buy, anything. Loitering drives sales in card shops. It's a pretty well-known phenomenon there. But loitering around in the middle of a pandemic is not really a great thing to do. Should we just let these businesses die because they weren't properly equipped on their own to handle a thing like a pandemic? I don't think so. I don't think we should let business owners just lose their livelihood. Because what's the end result of that? What's the end result when you lose all your small businesses and all you have are your big box corporations? I'm going to be a little hyperbolic here and point out that eventually you get to a point where everything is some form of lumber mill town. Everything is some sort of mining town. Now, what were mill towns, and why is this important here? Well, your mill towns basically would have your sawmill, and everybody was employed by the sawmill. Everybody in the town was employed by the sawmill, and the sawmill also was responsible as the retailer as well. They would get all the goods in. So you got paid by the sawmill. The sawmill owned the land around you, so you also rented out your living quarters from the sawmill, and then you got your retail goods from the sawmill, and you would only ever get paid by the sawmill. These sort of things are devastating because they are a lock and key, basically. It's almost impossible to get out of a situation like this. It's almost impossible to get out of a mill town because what are you going to do? Go get employment elsewhere? How are you going to get employment elsewhere when the entire town is owned by a single place? Company towns like this can easily come up again. I'm going to list a couple examples that are pretty easy, and then I'm going to list a nightmare scenario. An easy one would be a place becoming basically a Walmart town. Everybody works at the local Walmart, and everybody ends up buying from the local Walmart. And so nobody gets to escape the local Walmart. That's all they've got. Or if you've just got a bunch of places like Walmart, you effectively have very small versions of this, where entire communities, smaller communities, end up working at this place. But a nightmare scenario that we probably need to consider is the fact that brick and mortar stores, as they exist currently, are slowly dying. Now, I don't think we should let them. I think we should do things to keep these things around, because I think they give more than they take. I think the convenience of getting everything online does not outweigh the mental health benefits of going out and socializing with people. But here's a nightmare scenario. Let's talk about Amazon for a moment. What happens when everybody around you gets most of their things from a place like Amazon? They have them delivered to their house, and they work as, let's say, an accountant from home for Amazon, or as a driver for Amazon, delivering every good imaginable from Amazon to other people so that they can stay employed from Amazon so that they can buy all their shit again from Amazon. Competition is very, very good for marketplaces. If you're going to have an open marketplace, competition is good and important. But what is the end goal of competition? In an ideal world for any company, the the ideal is not to maintain competition with other companies. The ideal is to win in that competition to become a monopoly. The end result of this is monopolies. This is the reason, one of the reasons why small businesses are important. It's not just that they flavor a town. That's one of the points that I brought up earlier, but I'm going to point out another one now. Small businesses, insofar as they can compete with the various things that big box companies can do, they provide competition for those companies and force them to keep things reasonable, at least on a price level. The game store near me, the place where I go and play cards, they have a policy where they beat or meet anything from GameStop. They literally fight the big box store all the time, which of course means their profits are going to be lower than what they could have been otherwise, but that's the only way they can survive. But what happens when big box stores don't have any competition? What happens when they get to monopolize? What happens when the only way you can get that thing you want or that thing you need is to kowtow to the one corporation that can provide it? Well, I think that the stuff that's been happening with Nintendo lately can probably explain what happens in that scenario, because Nintendo doesn't really have competition. There are other gaming companies, sure, but Nintendo has positioned themselves to be the only place offering what they do. They don't have true competition, so they can offer all of their shit at exorbitant prices, a game that Microsoft and Sony don't have to play by because they have to fight with each other. What if everybody got to play by those rules? Well, if you keep letting monopolies happen, that's what will happen. If you don't support your small businesses, that is an end result. Big box stores fight with each other, and small businesses fight with each other, but all competition is towards the singular goal of monopoly. Do not allow monopolies to happen, and one way you can prevent that is if your government is willing to help keep small businesses alive and afloat. Ours has not done that. Our government has not done a good job in that regard. They've not been doing what they can to keep small businesses afloat. And I know this because I am adjacent to a few of them. So, I wanted to go on a rant about that, go on a rant about monopolies, go on a rant about a nightmare scenario. I know none of that is the most positive stuff in the world, but it is the reality we live in, and we do have to at least come to terms with the fact that our material reality isn't great. It's up to us to try to do something about it. So, go participate in fucking politics, you weebs.